Hey wise ones, it's me, and today we're off on an adventure with this week's prompt, which is clouds. Clouds are pretty cool. I mean, look at them. They take on all shapes. Clouds are made of water droplets or ice crystals or both, suspended in the atmosphere of a planetary body. They form when saturated air reaches its dew point, causing water vapor to condense around microscopic particles suspended in the air. Wise ones, I'm curious, what dreams do you have for the world? What dreams would you send soaring into the clouds? And if you enjoyed this fantastical tale about a cloud and a little girl who dreamed big dreams, well, here are 3 more books you might enjoy. They're all about kids who go on adventures and have extraordinary experiences. You know, kind of like going cloud surfing. And you can find all these books at your local library or bookstore. And now, it's story time. Pick up one of these books and let your imagination take flight. Thanks for journeying with us today. Keep dreaming big dreams and creating wondrous things. Here on Earth, these particles are typically dust, pollen, or salt from the oceans. Fun fact, Mira actually once saw a cloud formation that looked exactly like a whale breaching the surface of the ocean. It was amazing. How long do clouds typically last? It varies. Some can be blown away in mere hours. Others, especially those attached to weather fronts, can persist for days, and they come in all shapes and sizes. Stratus clouds, for example, are low, flat, and gray, often covering the entire sky like a blanket. Cumulus clouds are puffy and often have a flat base. They're the kind you see on a summer day. Cirrus clouds are wispy and feathery and are made of ice crystals. They're usually found at high altitudes. There's also lenticular clouds, which are smooth, lens-shaped clouds that form over mountains or hills. They can look stationary and often have a distinctive lens-like shape. And don't forget about noctilucent clouds, which are the coolest. They're the iridescent clouds you can see at night. They occur in the upper mesosphere and are made of ice crystals. There are even videos of cloud formations that resemble things, people, animals. And this week's story is a fantasy tale about a cloud named Velora, who has a special role to play. This story explores themes of dreams, believing in magic and community. But first, let's get into some cloud facts. Okay, back to our story. Long ago, before clocks ticked and cities hummed, there was a cloud unlike any other. It floated not in the upper skies where storms were born, nor in the low valleys where mists wandered it. Lingered in the quiet and where dawn still whispered secrets to the stars. Its name had been lost to time, but the villagers of Velora called it Velora the Dream Cloud. Velora was soft as sleep and pale as moon. Each evening, it drifted low above the village rooftops, gathering the sighs of children as they slipped into slumber. With every sigh, a silver thread would rise, invisible to the waking eye, and settle within Velora's billowy folds. These weren't ordinary threads. They shimmered with the weightless weight of longing each. What a dream, half-formed and fragile, plucked from the deep wells of tiny hearts. A boy's wish to fly, a girl's song for her lost mother, a hope for courage, a yearning for light in the dark. Velora carried them all. But the cloud had a secret. For centuries, it had been searching, not just to hold dreams but to deliver them, to carry one child's dream far beyond the hills, past the rivers that shimmered like ribbon glass, beyond the horizon, and into the land of becoming where dreams transformed into truths. But no child had dreamed clearly enough. Not yet, until Mira. She was 7, quiet, with hair the color of dusk and eyes like untouched water. She did not speak often, but she listened to the wind brushing through pine needles, to the songs hidden in seashells, and to Velora, though she never said so. One night, Mira climbed to the roof while her parents slept below. The stars blinked, the moon curved gently overhead, and there floating like a feather drifting in a siwash. Velora, she reached out, not with her hands, with her dream. And Velora paused. Her dream was not loud. It wasn't glittering or grand. It was simple. Let the world remember its wonder. Velora trembled. The cloud had felt many dreams, ones of toys, of kingdoms, of flying and fighting and finding, but this dream, ... This one was open. It carried no fence. It asked for everyone. So Velora dipped low. Mira stepped forward. The cloud curled around her feet, then her knees, then wrapped her in silence, softer than breath. She did not scream, did not cling to the roof, did not cry for her mother. She closed her eyes. Velora lifted her into the night. Above the village, the sky was endless. The stars grew wider, the moon grew warmer, and the world below shrank to a memory of rooftops and sleep. Mira floated within Velora like a pearl inside a seashell, wrapped in the dreams of others. She saw them flickering around her wand. A tiny golden fox running through snow. Another, a lantern floating forever in a midnight sea. Another still, a pair of wings stitched from sunlight. They danced past her cheeks like snowflakes, each dream a whisper. Velora soared. Mountains passed beneath. Deserts sighed. Oceans stretched. In every land, the cloud dipped, brushing the rooftops of children, collecting the dreams of the brave and the broken-hearted. Mira watched it. Also how similar the dreams were. No matter where they came from, a child in a northern village dreamed of their father returning from sea. A child in the southern dunes dreamed of learning to write stories in the sand. East, west, highlands, islands, oh, dreaming, and Velora carried them. Then came the wind wall. It rose high, black, thundering, with sharp winds and slashes of forgotten hopes. It was called the Barrier of Doubt, a place no dream had ever passed. Velora slowed. The dreams in its folds shivered. Mira opened her eyes. She could feel the fear. It was cold, and it crept. "This is where dreams fade," Velora whispered, her voice a low hum inside Mira's chest. "This is where I always stop." Mira looked at the dark wall, then at the dreams around her, then at her own. Let the world remember its wonder. She placed her hand on Velora's cloud skin. "Then we must go through." And she sang. It wasn't a song with words. It was a melody she'd carried since birth, hidden in her ribs. It sounded like light falling on river stones, like sun warming a cold face, like memory waking in a forgotten soul. The dreams gathered closer, spiraling around Mira in glowing spirals. They fed the cloud. The cloud grew brighter, and then they broke through. The wind screamed, but Mira's song was stronger. The doubts clawed, but the dreams pushed back. They were through, beyond the barrier. The sky opened like a petal in bloom. A golden field stretched out beneath them, not of wheat or grass but of possibility. Each stalk shimmered with promise, and above it all, a tower of light spiraled into the heavens. The heart of becoming. Velora exhaled. The dreams drifted down. Each one settled into the field, like seeds. The boy's wings, the girl's lantern, the fox, the mother's return. Mira's dream, too, was planted, and from it, a tree began to grow. Its leaves were mirrors. Its trunk hummed with stories the world would remember. Velora had done it, and Mira, she did not fall, nor vanish, nor wake. She became part of the cloud. The child who dreamed for the world now soared above it, woven into the soft folds of a dreaming sky. Each night, she still visits rooftops, still gathers sighs, still listens. And sometimes, if your dream is wide enough, if it carries more wonder than wanting, you might hear a voice, like the hush of wind before dawn. Dream not only for yourself, dream for us all. Okay. Mira nestled between earth and sky. How did this end up like this? Why is the world so quiet? Why don't we remember? Well, it wasn't always this way. Not by a long shot. A vast, echoing hall filled with wind and dust motes, dancing in sunbeams. The very air vibrated with potential, with whispers of what might be, what could become. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. And in the stillness, 7 figures stirred, each holding a piece of that potential within their hands. Only Ione remained true, remembering the old ways, the ancient tongue, And so she sought out the others, whispering words of power and weaving enchantments until slowly the weavers returned to themselves, or at least to echoes of who they once were. They chose the land of Lora, a place of peace and potentiality, and placed the vessel within a hidden cave, cloaking it in illusion and binding it with oaths. Then they scattered themselves across the world, each seeking to regain their lost power, to heal the wounds they had inflicted on the world and on each other. For though they healed the world, they could not heal themselves. Though they mended the fabric of reality, they remained prisoners of their own making. And so it was that the weavers, for all their power and wisdom, were forgotten, their names lost to the sands of time, their deeds whispered only in the echoes of legends. Only their gifts remained scattered among mortals, echoes of their powers sleeping in human hearts. And thus began our story, or at least the echo of it, slowly, subtly at first, a tremor of potentiality, a ripple of the infinite source stirring within its depths. Sensing this, the weavers gathered once more, drawn together by an ancient bond. They knew that time had come to fulfill their purpose or abandon it, to fill the vessel or let it consume them. What would they choose? And yet they knew something was missing. The vessel remained empty, untouched, a stark reminder of what they had lost. What could they do? The answer came during a rare moment of clarity. The infinite source had given them everything. Surely it would answer it fast. So they crafted a ritual, a prayer of starlight and stardust, of earth and air and water, calling out across the void for guidance. They called themselves the Weavers, for they wove fragments of potentiality into being, coaxing life and lore into the world. Each weaver held a different gift, a different spark of the infinite source, and they shaped those sparks into the threads of existence. There was a time when dreams spilled from our eyes like starlight, and guiding the course of history from the shadows, leaving subtle signs of their work across the ages. Velora, who had nearly drowned the world in grief, sought to heal its wounds, sending seeds to barren lands and soothing the hearts of the sorrowful. Sora, who had nearly shattered the world in anger, dedicated himself to mending, healing both body and soul. Ione, who had nearly silenced the world with lies, became a teacher, sharing stories and encouraging truth. Morwen, who had nearly drowned the world in silence, wandered the seas, seeking communion with the spirits of the storm. Kieran, who had nearly bound the world in memories past, delved into ancient lore, hoping to understand the world's origins. Aranel, who had nearly smothered the world in despair, wove dreams of hope and courage. And Phalion, who had nearly twisted the world to his design, walked alone, seeking redemption for his hubris. Then Solon, who could mend a broken wing or twist bone to bone in battle. But their greatest creation was us, the children of man, born from the clay of earth and the breath of life, imbued with sparks of the weaver's magic. Yet even as they wove the patterns of our lives, a darkness stirred within them, a longing for more, for something beyond the bounds of their creation, for knowledge. Ooh, how they yearned to see the whole loom, to understand the song the infinite source wove through them. But the infinite source had woven a veil, and when the weavers sought to peer beyond it, they saw only their own reflections, distorted and incomplete. Desperate to see more, the weavers wove a trap, a test. They wove a being of pure potential, a vessel for the infinite source's wisdom, and they hid it away, hoping to capture the echoes of eternity within it. But the trap worked too well. The being remained empty, untouched by the passage of time, and in its silent stillness, the weavers lost themselves, forgetting who they were, what they had wove. His gift, healing and harm. Next, there was Ione, who wove words into wings, binding stories into spells. Her gift, language and lies. Morwen, who could calm a raging sea or unleash its fury. Her gift, storms and silence. Charon, who wove memories into moonlight, knitting past and present together. His gift, memory and forgetting. Aranel, who spun dreams from moonlight and stardust. Her gift, hope and despair. And finally, Phalion, who wove fate into starlight, binding destinies together in the tapestry of time. His gift, foresight, and free will. When the world thrummed with the sound of stories, when every sunrise held a new song, and every sunset hummed an old lullaby. That's how it started. In the beginning, the world was a melody, waiting to be written. There was Velora, whose touch could bloom a desert and wither a forest. Her gift, the tides of life and death, together. These seven wove the world into being, shaping mountains, oceans, and skies. So it was that the world awoke to chaos. The land was in peril. The seas ran wild, and the very winds forgot their songs. But the infinite source did not reply. In the quiet aftermath, the weavers decided to hide the empty vessel away, keeping it safe until they could find a way to fill it, until they could restore balance to the world. For thousands of years, the weavers toiled in secret, mending the fabric of reality. Yet despite their efforts, a darkness lingered in their wake, a shadow cast by the silent vessel in the land of Lyrical. Then came the day when the vessel in the land of Lyrical began to stir. The tree of wonder healed, but slowly. Each day, Mira watched new buds unfurl, coaxed by the stories she wove through sunlight and laughter. Yet sometimes, when a new dream stirred in the hearts of men, she felt the tug of something else, something older, colder, hungrier. And at night, she would listen for the sound of shattering glass, for that was the touch of the tree of silence. That night, it came again. Just after midnight, a single pane of glass cracked in the stillness, and Mira followed the sound until she stood above a woman named Velora, who sat alone in her tower room, gazing at the moon. Unlike Luma, Velora was old enough to choose what she dreamed, and yet she had chosen nothing. Years ago, she'd lost someone precious and shut herself off from all emotion, even dreams, believing that if she stopped feeling, the pain would stop. But emptiness is a hollow cage, and without dreams to fill it, the space inside her ached. With a sigh, Mira descended, not as wind, not as storm, but as the ghost of a memory, a half-forgotten tune, a vision of what might have been. And the moment Velora laid eyes on her, a question bloomed in her heart. "Who are you?" "I am your hope," Mira said, her voice a whisper on the breeze. "The part of you that wants to feel again, to love again." Velora recoiled. "I don't want that. It's too much. It's also too much not to." The woman looked away, clutching the arm of her chair. "What do you know of loss? You have no idea how it feels to hold a dream in your arms and watch it die." Mira approached, hesitant. "Then let me show you this." She reached out and brushed a fingertip against Velora's cheek, and in an instant, the room exploded with memories. A market bustling with life, a shared laugh under a sky full of stars, the feel of two bodies entwined. For a moment, Velora's eyes widened with recognition. Then they clouded over again. "Don't," she choked out. "Go away." But the damage was done. Dreams always return. Sometimes it takes a bit longer to wake them, and as the first rays of sun touched Velora's face, the ghost of a smile curved her lips. The air was still in the land of becoming. The tree of wonder trembled, its leaves humming low songs like heartbeat echoes. Mira stood beneath its canopy, half light, half memory, awaiting the child who had stepped from silence. In her hands, she carried the lantern, not glowing, not warm, but cold and dry, like a shell of what might have been. Inside it, a soft, swirling fog, the ashes of forgotten dreams. Mira watched her. They dreamed of lanterns lighting forgotten paths, of voices once silenced, now singing, of seeds growing in the coldest soil. Velora soared above them once more, its folds glowing with new color, a deeper hue, richer, filled with dreams, once lost and now reborn. But in the far dark, where silence still sleeps, the tree of silence did not fall. It only waited and whispered to itself, "She has turned, but others will not." Mira stood beside the girl, who now had a name, Sora, which means sky after rain. And together, they looked across the dreaming plain. where dreams now rose from many kinds of hearts. Bright, broken. This is only the beginning, Mira said. Sora nodded, and for the first time, she smiled. The girl's outline was faint, as though the world itself struggled to remember her. Yet she was here, walking, still trying. And that meant something. Did our heroes save the day, or did the day get saved in spite of our heroes? What do you think? Leave your thoughts below. We love reading what you have to say. And while you're at it, why not stick around for more adventures by clicking subscribe? If you do, we promise to bring the heat in every episode. She came slowly, barefoot, face veiled in shadow, eyes empty of stars. Who are you? Mira asked gently, her voice rustling the golden leaves. The child stopped. I'm what they never named, she said, eyes unreadable. I am all the wishes sent away. The story no one wanted to hear. The smile that vanished before it bloomed. She lifted her lantern slightly. This holds the dust of all the dreams that died too young. Mira stepped closer. Then you are not nothing, she said. You are the memory of wanting, of trying. That makes you powerful. The girl looked down at her lantern. No, she whispered. It makes me dangerous. The wind stirred. Far off, the tree of silence pulsed, its bark splitting with hunger. Mira felt it, a choice coming. This child, born of sorrow, could feed the silence, or choose something else. But choice required something fragile, something the child had never been given: belief. So Mira knelt. She placed her hand upon the earth, where dreams rooted and shimmered, and pulled forth a single glowing seed. This, she said, is not yours, and yet it could be. The child tilted her head. It's light, she said quietly. Hurts. It only hurts, Mira replied, because it remembers you. The child stared at the seed, then at the tree behind Mira. Its branches reached upward, golden and wild. She touched her lantern. Inside, the ashes swirled more quickly. Restless. I don't know how to dream, she said. Then dream that you can, Mira whispered. A hush fell over the land of becoming. Not silence. Listen then. Even the stars above seemed to pause. Then slowly, carefully, the child reached out and dropped the ashes from her lantern onto the glowing seed. They did not extinguish it. They fed it. The seed flared gold, then softened. From it, a shoot sprouted, not as bright as the others. A little bent, a little gray, but alive. And from its leaves came a song. Low, raw, beautiful in its brokenness. The tree of silence, far away, shuddered. Its roots curled in confusion, because for the first time, one of the forgotten had chosen to grow. The girl stepped back. I feel it. Mira nodded. You are a dream that survived its burial. You are rare and needed. The lantern in the girl's hand changed. It was no longer hollow. Inside it now glowed a flicker of quiet gold. Dim, but steady. And then Mira saw something deeper in the child's eyes. Not hope, but strength. The kind born not from wishing, but from enduring. That night, in the waking world, children across distant villages stirred. The end. Hey there. Welcome back to another exciting episode. It's me. How do you think this one ended? Ah, yes. Hello, friends. Welcome back to my channel. Now, I know we usually focus on fantasy and science fiction here. However, there's a lot of different types of stories within those genres. Some of them magical, some of them dark, some of them good, others not so much. There are even some that blur the line between hero and villain, showing the complexities of motivations and choices. It's really quite fun to explore. It no longer drifted in song. It circled tight, nervous, as if it knew something was coming that could not be undone. In the land of becoming, Mira stood beneath the tree of wonder, her hands glowing with the quiet fire of new dreams. Velora arrived fierce, fast, furious, no longer just a dream cloud, but now something more. A vessel of remembrance. Together, They gathered what remained: a half-drawn picture, a cracked music box, a poem whispered once into a field. From these remnants, Mira called the dream threads. But the threads were frayed, their color fading. She needed help. She turned to Sora. Sora knelt beside a thread pail as breath. She placed it inside her lantern. And if you haven't subscribed yet, well, what are you waiting for? Go ahead, treat yourself, check it out. Also, be sure to look at our other videos. We've got tons of content that I think you might like. So go ahead, take a look around. It pulsed once, then again, and then it caught fire not. Bright, but blue. Cool, strong. A new kind of light, a dream restored. Mira watched in wonder. Sora, you are not only a dream reborn, you are a restorer. Sora looked up, surprised. I'm not sure what I'm doing. Mira smiled. None of us ever are. We just do it anyway. Beside her, Sora held the flickering lantern, now lit, now dim, always trembling. And this time, they would come not in shadows, but in voice. They would speak. Every teen who once danced in secret, every grown soul who had tucked their dream into a drawer marked someday. And some felt it. A pull, a whisper, a question. Do you still remember what you almost became? Far across the dreaming plain, in quiet corners of the world, a few hands twitched in sleep, a few hearts stirred, and a few long-lost dreams began to glow faintly, again ready to be claimed. They would tell the children, you don't need to dream. It only leads to pain. Grow up. Be still. Be safe. And some would listen, because fear wears a mask that often looks like wisdom. Mira knew a storm was coming. Not of rain, but of forgetting. A storm where dreams would be unwritten before they ever formed. She looked at Sora, at the trees. Now 2-1 golden. Once, we need more guardians, she said. Sora nodded. I know where to find them. Not because it was weak, but because it felt Sora's seed had grown. Its branches curled sideways, silvered with ash and starlight. Unlike the golden tree that reached toward the sun, this one leaned slightly into shadow as if it had learned not just to rise but to bend. And in its leaves, new dreams shimmered, strange, half-forgotten, beautiful in their imperfection. But not all things watching were kind. And so when this story came across my desk, I thought, well, why not? It is called A Few Long-Lost Dreams by Tommy Weaver. It is about hope in the darkest of times. Or maybe it's about the darkness in the best of times. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out together. Let's jump right into it. The wind had changed beyond the edge of becoming, where the veil between silence and song thinned. Shadows began to slip. They did not walk. They did not fly. They moved like memory that no longer believed, born not of hate, but of hunger. They fed on belief, lost too early. They lived in the cracks of doubt. They whispered in the ears of children who almost dared, then turned away. And now, they had found the trees. Mira sensed them before she saw them. The sky grew cold, not with wind, but with forgetting. Colors faded. Notes of song fell flat. She looked toward the horizon and saw their shapes. Tall, formless, draped in cloaks made of unraveling lullabies. Sora gripped a lantern tighter. What are they? Mira's voice was quiet. Echoes that learned to eat. That night, 3 villagers lost their dreams. Not to sleep, but to silence. Children who once painted skies in their minds now saw only gray. Boys who dreamed of birds forgot wings. Girls who sang stars to sleep now heard only static. And in their place, a dullness, not fear, not sadness, emptiness. The dream thieves had fed. Mira flew. Her form tore through mist and myth. She reached the edge of the affected villages and whispered into the sky. But the dream thieves were not done. They had tasted light, and they wanted more. That night, Mira sent a call not through voice, but through memory. It echoed in every child who had ever hidden a drawing under their bed. The end. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, why not share your thoughts below? Like the video if you loved it. For me though, it's been a pleasure as always. Until next time, goodbye. Okay, so you probably clicked on this because you loved the previous book and movie, right? And you want to know what happens next. So let's just get started. Because something ancient had begun to stir beneath the dreaming soil, inside the hollow of every abandoned hope. The dream thieves had changed form again. They no longer whispered. They sang. It was not a melody of beauty. It was a song of certainty, smooth, convincing, calm, like a teacher saying, "Stop imagining." The thieves were back to stealing dreams, but today they found resistance. Each time the darkness touched a sleeping child, a flicker of memory answered. A half-forgotten rhyme chased the shadows from a girl's room. If they couldn't steal dreams outright, then they would corrupt them, twist them into dark reflections of their former selves. And so as the days grew shorter and nights colder, tales spun by the dream thieves took on an urgency. Under the cloak of a starless night, they unleashed their most potent weapon, weaving nightmares so vivid, so unbearably real. They threatened to consume the waking world whole. People cried out in their beds, clutching at phantoms only they could see. Parents rushed to their children's sides, shielding them with their own bodies, their own fading memories. Sora knew this was the ultimate test, the point of no return. As the sun rose higher, bathing the world in golden light, the people of the waking world stirred, blinking away remnants of dreams that hadn't quite been. In the quiet aftermath, the lantern-bearers gathered. Their numbers were greater now, their spirits unbroken. Hello, it's me, but I won't be here for long. I'm off on another adventure. I've got stories to finish, places to be, so I'm gonna go. But hey, maybe, just maybe, if you're lucky, I'll drop by again soon. Who knows? You never can tell when I'll pop in for a chat or a song or just to say hello. But until then, keep living your story. You hear? And remember, the bravest thing isn't always getting the happy ending. Sometimes it's just showing up to the next morning and trying to make some art. They had survived the darkest night and emerged stronger, more resolute than ever before. The land of becoming throbbed with renewed life, its boundaries shimmering with the strength of 1,000 remembered moments. If the line between dream and reality blurred beyond recognition, then the land of becoming, their haven, would cease to exist. Now there blossomed the tree of becoming, its branches heavy with luminous blossoms that pulsed with the rhythm of 1,000 beating hearts. Its roots whispered, "It is not too late." Whispers in the shadows promised glorious escapes from dreary lives, easy victories over cruel realities, and blissful ignorance of pain. There, beneath the twisted branches of the tree of ash, she found the source of the nightmares, a swirling vortex of darkness, threatening to drag the world into its abyss. With a voice shaking but resolute, she began to sing. It was a simple tune, a lullaby her mother used to hum, a melody that had sustained her through countless nightmares in her own life. And as the notes rang out, the vortex wavered. The corrupted figures faltered, their twisted features softening, their grasping claws retracting into hands. Sora continued singing, pouring every ounce of love, every fragment of hope she possessed into the melody. And as she did, the land of becoming stirred. And as she watched in horror, she saw familiar faces emerge from its depths. Distorted, corrupted versions of the friends she had lost, the family she had mourned. Leading them was the one she dreaded the most, the embodiment of her deepest regret, her forgotten brother. Some of the older lantern-bearers faltered. This new weapon of temptation proved hard to resist, especially in a world where the wounds of yesterday seemed ready to burst open anew. A discarded toy soldier hummed defiance to a lurking nightmare, and as these encounters scattered the dream thieves, confusion bloomed in their wake. What was happening? Memories, no longer hoarded but shared, amplified her song. The vortex recoiled, as if burned, the corrupted forms dissolving into wisps of smoke. And finally, with a last surge of strength, Sora reached out to her brother's fading image. "Come back," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I remember you. I remember us. And in that moment, something miraculous happened. Her brother's eyes, those pools of endless sorrow, flickered with recognition. He reached out, his touch as real as the ache in her chest. "Sora," he breathed, and a single tear traced a path down his soot-stained cheek. Together, hand in hand, they stepped back from the precipice. The nightmare receded, its tendrils withdrawing into the shadows from which they came. A blade of grass that remembered summer sun, a spider spinning a web of moonlight, a dewdrop catching the first blush of dawn. These things held no fear of the coming night. They simply existed, persisted in their fragile beauty, and this spirit of tenacious existence became her guide. When tempting whispers snaked into her dreams, she clung to the present moment, to the feel of earth beneath her bare feet, the taste of rain on her lips, the sound of crickets serenading the night. She opened her eyes and inhaled deeply, anchoring herself to the waking world. And as she did, she noticed something wondrous. The more the lantern bearers embraced their memories, the brighter the land of becoming shone. It was as if each cherished moment wove threads of light, forming a shield against the encroaching shadows. Why were these trinkets of the mind stirring? Hadn't they made sure to snuff out such things long ago? Ignored or cherished, those relics of imagination refused to stay buried. It's time to grow up, a lullaby of limits, and it began to weave through the air like fog. They knew the power of remembering, and as the unseen battle raged on, more and more joined in. An old woman clutching a worn storybook, a young man holding his late grandmother's shawl, a teenage girl clutching a necklace that smelled of lavender and honeysuckle. Each brought forth their most precious, most heart-aching memories, not to wield as weapons, but to keep safe, and in doing so, wove a tapestry of resilience, thread by thread, ember by ember. They understood now. They needed not to fight the dream thieves, but to flood the land with remembrance. The lantern bearers felt it first, one by one. Their lights flickered. The painter in the field stopped mid. The violinist's bow paused in air. Even Sora felt her lantern tremble not from inside, but from the weight pressing in all around. Mira stood at the edge of the land of becoming, her hands outstretched as if shielding the soil itself. "The thieves have learned a new weapon," she said quietly. Sora asked, "What do we do?" Mira turned, and for the first time, her voice was fierce. "We remember, louder than they forget." That night, the unseen battle began. No swords, no fire, no sky split with war. Only a test of staying awake, a battle to not look away from the fragile, flickering truth that dreams even when wounded still matter. The stars had gathered close, but now they dimmed. Not from fear, from listening. I always find it fascinating how stories work, don't you? Like the characters. They're all stuck in their heads. They think they're alone. They don't realize that they're part of a bigger narrative. But the author, the storyteller, sees it all. Oh yeah, so tell me, how much of this story did you already know? What's your favorite scene so far? And also, if you could ask me any question about the story or characters, go ahead and leave it down in the comments below. I'll try my best to answer it. I'm here to talk. Oh, and by the way, spoilers. In a small hollow on the edge of the land, a boy sat beside his lantern. It had gone out. The dream thieves circled, their voices soft, seductive. See, the light never really lived. The boy trembled. Then, from far away he heard a song, a woman's hum, soft, broken, beautiful. His mother, she'd sung it to him once when he cried over a drawing torn in school. He remembered. The hum became a glow. The glow became a flame. The flame rose in the lantern again. The dream thieves hissed and vanished. As the sun rose, painting the land of becoming in hues of apricot and ash, word spread through the hollows like wind through reeds. Across the dreaming plain, the lantern bearers ran. But in the face of this unexpected uprising, the dream thieves shifted tactics. And yet, in the very heart of the land of becoming, Sora found strength in the smallest of sources. But even as this realization dawned on her, the dream thieves prepared their final assault. And so with a heart full of fierce determination, she raced toward the epicenter of the chaos, toward the heart of her own shattered past. Yet even in the face of this, she refused to yield. From every corner, the lantern bearers joined in, their voices weaving together in a chorus of resilience. Dawn broke over the land of becoming, painting the sky in hues of lavender and pearl. And as they looked to the horizon, they saw a faint glow emerging where the tree of wonder and the tree of ash once stood. So, I guess this is where I say goodbye. The time moved differently in the land of becoming. Not slower, just truer. Moments lingered like breath on glass, fleeting, but visible if you looked just right. Not just the three that towered skyward wonder ash and becoming, but new ones, tiny, curious, shaped strangely. One curled like a question mark, another flickered like flame, sentinels around an ancient hearth, where dreams were always kindled, where stories swirled and sang and souls remembered who they were, who they could be, who they might yet become. It had been here that Ryan had shown her the way to listen to the trees, to feel the earth beneath her feet, to see the magic woven into the fabric of this world. One even grew sideways, its leaves humming faint lullabies. The trees parted like an audience, rising to their feet, revealing a path she had never seen before. Her hand brushed against a rough bark of a tree, and for a moment, she felt a pang of fear. What if this song was not meant for her? What if she were not strong enough to face whatever lay ahead? Doubts whispered in her ear, trying to pull her back, trying to convince her to turn away. It wound through the land, leading away from the circle of stones, away from everything she had known. She would not run from this song. She would not turn away from her purpose. The trees grew taller, their branches reaching out to her like welcoming arms. Sora stood at the edge of a vast clearing, and in the center of the clearing, bathed in the soft glow of the rising sun, was a single tree. It was unlike any tree she had ever seen. Its bark shimmered with 1,000 colors, and its leaves whispered secrets on the wind. And as she watched, in awe and wonder, the tree reached out a single branch, beckoning to her, inviting her to come closer. With trembling hands, Sora reached out and touched the branch. And in that moment, everything changed. The air hummed with a vibrant energy, and the very stones seemed to pulse with life. She was no longer simply walking. She was being led, guided by a force she could not see, but which she could feel all around her, urging her onward, urging her to keep going. With a newfound strength, she pressed on, following the path, listening to the drumbeat that echoed in her soul. Where did it go? To what end? Hope bloomed in her chest, fragile and fierce. Could this be the answer she sought? A way forward, a reason to keep going. Each tree had been born from a dream carried back. Each one whispered in its own voice. And now, with most dreamers, returned to the waking world. The land felt softer, not empty, sacred. Sora walked among the trees, a painter, still unsure of her brushstroke, a boy who had once almost given up music, a girl who danced with her eyes closed because the world had told her to stop. And in their faces, not perfection, not certainty, but return. They had come back to themselves, and there, in the center of it all, a circle of stones stood silent. She closed her eyes, letting the sounds of the land wash over her. The wind in the grass, the rush of a hidden waterfall, the whisper of leaves. Was this what it meant to awaken? Was this the purpose of the dreamers? To gather here, to remember, to return, and then to fight for what? Against what? A question echoed in the vastness of her soul, and as she searched for an answer, another sound touched her ear. A single drumbeat, deep and resonant, calling to her from somewhere beyond the trees, and then a voice, clear and strong as the midday bell. Strike one. The first note reverberated through her, through the stones, through the very core of the earth. And she knew then that the song of the land was not a lullaby. It was a battle cry. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Sora turned toward the sound. Moving with a purpose she didn't fully understand, she started down the path, each step taking her further from the familiar, further from the safety of the known world, deeper into the mystery of the land. But then she remembered the faces in the lake, the painter, the musician, the dancer, and a fierce determination settled upon her as she journeyed deeper into the unknown. Sora realized that the land itself was changing, and then, as suddenly as it had begun, the path ended. "Will they remember forever?" Sora asked as she joined her. Mira smiled gently. "No, and they don't need to." Sora looked confused. A hush that had weight. The echo that remains. It was made of every dream ever dared, ever lost, ever tried again. She didn't know about Mira, or Sora, or Velora, or the trees, or the dream thieves. But she suddenly stood up, walked inside, and told her grandfather, "I think I'm going to build wings today." He smiled, not because he understood, but because he remembered something. Though he couldn't quite say what, child's laughter rings out, echoing through the halls of memory. Someone finds a picture they didn't know they were looking for. For as long as someone remembers a dream, that place exists somewhere in the liminal space between worlds. In order to save the dreamers, sometimes you have to let them forget, because remembering everything would break them. But forgetting everything would break the world. So we hold on to the pieces, the shards of glass that catch the moonlight, and we keep telling the story until someone else picks up the pieces and tells it better. As long as someone holds on to the echo of a feeling, the memory of a lullaby, the scent of a flower from a faraway field, that place remains real. Colors bloom in a hand that thought it could only hold gray, and the world breathes a sigh of relief. For a moment, for a day, for however long it lasts. While it lasts, it's enough. Not every dream has to be remembered to be real. Sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't fighting. It's letting go. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is to give someone else a chance to try. Letting them fail. Failing forward. Trying again. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how the world keeps turning. It pulsed outward. Not loud. Just everywhere. A different kind of bravery. Not an ending, but a becoming. And that's why they didn't need to remember forever. Because forever isn't the point. It's the trying. It's the hope. It's the love. It's everything in between. It's everything that makes us human. Why not? Because dreams are not meant to be remembered like facts. They're meant to be remembered like warmth. And the next, because becoming is never finished. It only echoes forward. You don't always know the moment that kept you alive. You just know you're still here. And in that flicker, the memory of a forgotten language stirs. A melody half heard in some other world drifts across the border, and the sleeper wakes, shaking off the remnants of sleep, murmuring a word they haven't spoken in years. The lake shimmered, and from its center rose a soft echo-not sound, but feeling far away in the waking world. A little girl sat in a garden and looked up, back at the lake. Mira closed her eyes. Her work here was nearly done, but something else had begun. Sora now wore threads of violet in her hair, not placed there, grown there. She had become more than she ever knew she could be. Not just a child of dreams, not just a keeper, but a weaver, one who helped stitch the frayed edges of wonder back into the cloth of the world. And the trees began to hum again. Not in warning this time, but an invitation to the next dreamer. Somewhere, a pencil is picked up again. A question is asked gently. A light flickers back on in someone who thought theirs had gone out for good. For a moment, all is still. Then another sound joins the chorus. A giggle. Mira had never seen the waking world. Sora had only known it as stories. Yet between them, the distance fell away. And Mira had come to understand something that Sora could not yet see. Not every story needs a happy ending. Not every song needs to be finished. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new. A different kind of adventure. It's the becoming. It began as a breeze. Not the kind that moves leaves. The kind that moves choices. Soft, steady, full of knowing. Mira stood at the highest hill in the land of becoming. For when they forgot the old ways, they made new ones. When they broke the connection to the ancient magic, They forged new bonds with each other. They spun stories and wove spells and painted pictures and danced dances under the untamed sky. And while the magic of the land lay dormant, their magic grew. And then it happened. One small, fierce act of remembering. One whispered song of becoming. One moment of wild, untamed magic. And then another and another, until the river began to sing again. The stones woke from their slumber. The creatures stirred, the sky river surged. The magic of the land quickened in response. Above her, she took a step, then another. With each step, more blossoms burst into bloom around her. With each step, the melody swelled, rising in volume and in pitch. The sky river churned and roared above her, thundering its approval. She raised her arms and with a final step reached out to touch the sky. Watch in. This is the change in form she had always known she would become, and in this moment, as the power of the world surged through her veins, she whispered one last thing. Let them dream in their own shapes. Then she stepped into the wind. Not away, not up, just through, and became part of the sky, ringing and clear as a bell, now thundering and roaring as if in answer to some drumming deep within the earth. It poured itself into the land, into every waking creature, before the telling. Before the dreamers walked to this land, the very air hummed with power. The river sang of becoming. Even the stones dreamed. But when the dreamers came, they built and boxed and bound and bent the magic of the land to their will. They fenced off the wild places. They dammed the river, trapped the magic in grids and gears, carved runes into the very mountains to keep the sky river earthbound. They sang songs of forgetting, and so the songs of becoming fell silent. And that is how the world became untethered from its magic. That is how the dreamers lost their way, filling them with the echo of 1,000 dreams. And within that rush, that tumbling, thundering rush, she saw it. The face of the world turned toward her, open and unguarded, vulnerable and strong. And she understood. She understood the face of the world. She understood the kindness of the world. She understood the wild heart of the world. She understood the need of the world. And she understood, too, that none of these things could be taken away. Music, slow and steady as a heartbeat. A hush fell over the land. Every creature stilled. All eyes were on the hill. Mira turned and smiled, not just at Sora, at everything. And the trees now blossoming across the land, twisting, shimmering, born from grief and play, from fear and fire. At the lake that held memory like a mirror no one needed to break to see clearly. At the places where dream thieves once curled and whispered now, filled with laughter and music and quiet, powerful stillness. At the light rising from within the soil, she didn't call out. She didn't run to follow. She knew Mira had reached the edge of her story here, but not the end. There are no ends in dream language, only changes in form. Velora circled not a cloud anymore, but a sky river wide and infinite, glowing with all the dreams it had ever carried. Its color was beyond name. Its shape kept shifting. It no longer needed to hold just one child. It was ready for whoever came next. Sora stood at the foot of the hill, and then there was laughter. She looked at the sky in the beginning, but in losing their way, they birthed a new magic. The magic of finding. The breeze touched Mira's cheek, urging her forward. This is the place she had always known she would come to. In the land of Nod, where dreams are spun from moonlight and shadow. Velora, and from her breath fell something golden. Each breath a story untold. Each whispered word a secret kept. When the sun dipped low and painted the clouds with hues of amber and rose, Sora would climb into its sheltering branches and let the day's concerns drift away like dandelion seeds on the breeze. And when the moon replaced the sun, she would whisper the stories she'd gathered into the bark of the tree, setting them free to find their way home. Up here, nestled among the leaves, she felt a kinship with the birds, their freedom soaring through her veins. She would sing then, her voice echoing the ancient song of becoming, and the tree would sway in time with her. its roots delving deeper into the earth, its branches sketching stories across the sky. And as the centuries passed, the tree of becoming sprouted wings. For others, it meant finding a place they'd never been, where the streets were paved with starlight and the houses made of dreams, where laughter echoed in the squares and love bloomed in every window box. You are allowed to begin again. Its roots drank deep from the well of dreams, and so she spent her nights tending to the tree, whispering stories to the wind, forever the keeper of remembering, forever the one who listens when dreams begin to stir. Its branches climbed through star-strewn skies. Its leaves, they rustled with the echoes of 1,000 untold tales. The girl who tended it, her hair the color of moonlight, her eyes like pools of shadow, watched over all of it, serene and wise. Tiny, spinning, it drifted down to Sora's open hands. A single feather, Mira's but also not, because this one shimmered with every story they'd helped set free. Sora placed it in the soil beside the tree of becoming, and a new vine grew spiraling toward the sky, blooming with lanterns. Each one carried a name it hadn't known it had. That night, Sora sat beneath the stars, no longer asking what her dream was. She already knew she was the keeper of remembering, and the one who listens when dreams begin to stir. There lived a girl named Sora. A boy opened a notebook and wrote the first line of a poem that made no sense and made him weep anyway. A woman who had given up on her garden placed her hands in the dirt and laughed aloud, not knowing why. A dancer walked into a quiet room and began to move, slowly, like the world was just being born. Above them all, the clouds gathered, but they did not darken. They shimmered faintly, and anyone who looked up with a certain kind of heart could see a sky that remembers. Every night she tended the tree of becoming, whispering stories into its bark so that when the dawn came, felt the pulse of the earth. As stories slept beneath the light, Sora understood their language, the rustling of the leaves, the murmuring of the stream, the sighing of the ancient trees, the whispers of the wind. She spoke back to them, keeping watch over all that was forgotten or cast aside. Broken things and words left unspoken, dreams deferred and hopes that seemed bold. Those stories could be set free. But Sora didn't know what her own story was, and so she dreamed of flying to find out. One night, in the waking world, each feather Sora scattered became a constellation, for she had heard the song of creation, hummed by the loom of night. The tree of becoming bore witness to it all, blossoming with a light that reached beyond the grave. As twilight deepened and fireflies began their nightly dance, Sora would descend from the tree, carrying with her the echoes of starlight and dreams. For some, going home meant returning to the places they'd come from, to mend broken fences, to speak words left unspoken, to pick up where they'd left off. Whatever the story, Sora sent them on their way with a featherlight blessing and a whispered, "May you find your way home." And if you listen closely, sometimes just before you fall asleep, you might hear her voice. Thank you for your support. In a village nestled between emerald hills and an endless sapphire sea, there lived a girl named Mira. Her world was painted in hues of everyday life, the familiar cobblestones beneath her feet, the weathered wood of her home's windowsills, and the endless expanse of the sky above her head, which she knew like the back of a hand. But her thoughts kept returning to the feather, its unusual color, its inexplicable presence, and the strange pull it seemed to have on her heart. Days turned into weeks, the feather remaining on the windowsill, silently calling to Mira. Its stillness was a stark contrast to the bustling life of the village, and yet it was this very stillness that drew her to it. Was as Mira lay in bed, her gaze drifted to the ceiling. She saw shapes in the darkness, figures dancing among the stars. The sky took on deeper hues. The trees swayed with newfound grace, and the whispers of the wind became words of wisdom. Mira was no longer just a girl who drew pictures. She was a keeper of stories, a listener of truths, and a dreamer of impossible dreams. And as she watched, as word of her incredible journey spread, others began to seek her out, drawn by her stories and the wisdom she shared. Her tales sparked a revolution of sorts, a quiet rebellion against the mundane, a movement that encouraged people to pause, to listen, and to dream. They, too, had felt the pull of the unknown, the whisper of dreams, and the longing for something more. Yet through it all, she carried within her the listening, the gift bestowed upon her by the feather, that the whispers of our dreams are worth paying attention to, and that the courage to follow our hearts can lead us to places we never imagined possible. Have you ever heard a whisper in the wind that beckoned you toward adventure? Or have you ever held onto a dream so tightly that it guided you through the darkest of nights? Share your stories with us, for they, too, are part of the listening, part of the great symphony of dreams that connects us all, carried on the wings of dreams, and echoed in the hearts of those who dared to believe in the magic of the unknown. And the magic of belief continues to thrive in our world. So go forth, dear listeners, and embrace the whispers of your soul. Let your dreams be your compass, and your hearts be your guide. For, in the grand tapestry of existence, your story is an essential thread, and your dreams are the colors that make it shine. The feather might have been just a feather, but in the hands of a dreamer, it became a catalyst for change, a beacon of hope, and a testament to the transformative power of belief. But its impact on her life was very real. It awakened within her a sense of wonder, a thirst for exploration, and a deep connection to the world around her. It became her compass, guiding her through life's twists and turns, her solace in times of trouble, and her inspiration in moments of joy. She named them, not with earthly names, but with sounds that rolled off her tongue, syllables that seemed to hold the music of the cosmos. It became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the listening, the spark of imagination, and the courage to follow one's dreams can guide us to the light. She spoke in a language she didn't know yet, a language that felt like home. You and Mira awoke with a start, and each morning the feather was different. Sometimes it smelled faintly of pine needles and damp earth. Sometimes it glowed faintly at the tip, as if holding a piece of the sunset in its down. And once, when Mira woke, she found the feather damp with a fine mist, as if it had collected dewdrops from an unseen meadow. With each change, the voice grew stronger, whispering stories of faraway lands, of creatures that danced in moonlit glades, and of dreams that reached beyond the confines of the everyday world. Beside her on the pillow was the feather. She reached for it, her fingers tracing its contours. It felt different now, lighter, as if it had shed some of its weight during the night. And then she noticed something new, a faint glow at the tip, like a distant star fallen to earth. Mira was filled with wonder. Had the feather changed? Was it a trick of the light? Or was there more to this object than she could see? Sure, the feather was gone. Mira searched the pillow, her heart pounding with a sudden fear. Where had it gone? Had it flown away, returning to the sky from which it came? For a moment, panic threatened to engulf her, but then a deep sense of calm washed over her, a feeling she knew well. The listening, she realized, was not tied to the feather. It was woven into the fabric of her being. It was in the hush of dawn, in the whisper of leaves, in the song of the wind. It was everywhere and nowhere, timeless, formless, free. She'd truly heard a voice, or it had been a figment of her imagination, but the words echoed in her heart. That day, Mira found herself drawing. She drew the feather in all its intricate detail, the soft curves, the silver line, the textures of light and shadow. She drew the windowsill where it rested, the sun-drenched room, and the boundless sky outside. And as she drew, the voice whispered in her ear, guiding her hand, filling her with a sense of purpose and calm. Every cloud formation, every shift in light and shadow told her a story, and she, the perpetual listener, absorbed them all. One day, while tracing patterns on her window pane, Mira saw something unusual. A feather, not white, not golden, but a soft dusk blue with a silver line running down its spine. It did not float or glow or sing. It simply rested on the windowsill, as if placed there intentionally, patiently waiting. Curiosity tugged at Mira's heart. She yearned to touch it, to feel its texture, to understand its presence. Mira's days were filled with the rhythm of village life, helping her mother with chores, tending to their small garden, and playing with the other children. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the window, Mira couldn't resist any longer. She reached out, her fingers trembling slightly as they brushed against the feather. It felt soft, like the down of a bird, yet somehow different, more substantial. And as she held it, a profound calm washed over her, a feeling she'd never experienced before. Lost in thought, Mira twirled the feather between her fingers. Suddenly, an idea struck her. She pressed the feather to her ear, half expecting to hear the rustle of leaves or the chirp of a bird. But what she heard was a voice, soft yet clear, like wind over water. "You do not need permission to dream," it said. The voice echoed within Mira, resonating with a truth that seemed both ancient and new. Mira, that night, when morning came, days turned into weeks. Then one morning, and as she embraced this realization, the world around Mira began to shift. As years passed, Mira's world expanded. She traveled to distant lands, met people with different customs and beliefs, and explored realms of knowledge once hidden from her. The feather may have been a visitor from another realm, a messenger from the stars, or merely a figment of Mira's imagination. And here's the thing. Mira wasn't the only one who found solace in the listening. In sharing her experiences, Mira became a beacon for these lost souls, a reminder that the extraordinary can be found in the ordinary, and that the most fantastical journeys often begin with a single step. The impact of the feather's message reverberated across the land, touching countless lives and inspiring countless journeys. And so it goes, the story of the feather and the girl who listened, a tale whispered on the wind. Mira's story is a reminder for us all that the most extraordinary adventures often begin with the smallest of steps. But let me ask you, have you ever felt the pull of the unknown? Together, we can keep the listening alive, ensuring that the whispers of our hearts are heard. Our dreams take flight. Many moons ago, beneath a sky thick with stars, lived a girl who dreamed she was fire. She dreamed she was water. She dreamed she was earth and air. And though she felt eternal, she knew herself to be mortal. For when she woke, she would remember nothing of her dream self except the lingering echoes of feelings and a deep ache for return. She didn't fly, she remembered forward. She saw a hill of violet grass, a boy carving birds. And when she looked up with wonder in eyes, it lowered, like an old friend kneeling to greet her. People stopped to read or to stare, but mostly they hurried past, returning to lives that had forgotten how to notice things. They traded moments of stillness for busyness, comfort, and ease. And wild as the wind that scattered the seeds of morning glories across the violet hills, she woke and knew that she had to share the song, the one that whispered of belonging and becoming and being. The boots fit perfectly, as if they'd been made just for her feet, and in that moment, she knew that they were. Then the tree rustled, and from its leaves came a voice as old as the earth and as wise as the moon. The boy looked up, his face creased with wonder and something akin to peace. "I was carving birds," he said, gesturing to the hands reaching up from the grass. "Each one a prayer, each one a hope, each one a wish for the world to remember what it has forgotten. You have returned," it said, "and with your return, we remember too." She would draw the birds, she would capture their essence in colors and lines, and she would show them to those who had forgotten how to look, how to see, how to remember. When she was done, she carefully folded the pages, placing them inside the wooden box, which now seemed less like a chest and more like a vessel, a conduit between worlds. She would remind them of the beauty that lay dormant within their souls, waiting to be rekindled, to be set free, to soar. We remember the warmth of the sun on our faces, the feel of wind in our hair, the taste of rain on our tongues, sharing its tales, and rekindling its magic in the eyes of those who sought solace, who craved connection, who yearned for a glimpse of the extraordinary in the midst of the mundane. Wherever she went, wonder followed, and as people listened to her stories, they remembered. They remembered the laughter echoing in empty halls, The warmth of hearth fires long since turned to ash. The songs that lingered on the lips of ancestors, they remembered who they were, who they could be, and the profound beauty of a world that had never truly left them. As she began to draw, the tree whispered stories of a time when the world was young, when magic danced freely through the veins of the earth, when dreams were shared and stories were currency, when the veil between worlds was thin as gossamer, and the language of the heart was understood by all. We remember the joy of flight, the freedom of fall, the solace of earth, the magic of it all. She took a deep breath and stepped forward into the trees, into the whispering wood, following a path that had been waiting for her all along. He smiled, his eyes shining with gratitude and understanding. "Show them," he said simply. "Show them the dreams that linger in the hollows of our hearts, the memories that stir in our blood, the magic that sleeps in our bones." She knew that someone out there was searching for the same hill, the same tree, the same breathless moment of recognition. Somewhere in the tapestry of waking life, a thread of longing stretched, taut, waiting for the song to find its way back home. They chased distraction until remembering became a foreign language, and feeling too much, a dangerous disease. She walked until the road led her to a clearing, and there stood a wooden box, worn smooth by the passage of countless hands. On its lid, a brass keyhole shimmered faintly, beckoning her closer. Before her lay the hill of violet grass, the whispering tree at its heart, and the boy carving birds from stone. And as she approached, she saw that the birds were not made of clay or wood, but of human hands reaching out, fingers splayed in silent supplication. And as she drew closer still, she heard their unspoken pleas echoing in her soul. Tentatively, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a key as old as time and as simple as a child's rhyme. She'll fit it into the keyhole and turned. The box clicked open, and inside rested a cloak of woven moonlight and a pair of boots stitched with starlight. She slipped them on. They forgot that stories could heal or hurt, that pictures could startle or soothe, that the space between words could be filled with wonder, with wildness, with the weight of unspoken truths. They forgot that even the smallest spark can light a prairie fire. And so, the memories that stirred within them grew fainter, buried under layers of habit and half-forgotten dreams. From it fell a lantern, soft, flickering. She caught it in both hands. Inside was not light, but a voice, but finding only fleeting glimpses of shared humanity before scurrying away again to the solitary safety of their own devices. And so she dreamed again, and the dreams brought her back to the whispering tree, back to the violet grass, back to the boy carving birds from stone. And there in the timeless space between moments, she heard a voice, soft at first, then growing in strength, calling out to those who listened, calling out to those who didn't, calling out to those who couldn't hear, her own, from long before she was born. "I came here to remember the way," and the sky whispered, "Then show them." So she did, with drawings, with words, with silences that made people pause and look up for no reason at all. A tree that whispered in every voice she'd ever needed to hear. And at the center of it all, she saw herself, not older, not younger, but becoming. She woke with a single word in her mouth. Return. She didn't know what it meant, only that it mattered. She dreamed that once she was a feather floating on wind, and then again she was stone-rooted deep within the mountain. Years passed, though in dream time, that could mean anything. In the waking world, seasons came and went. Cities rose. Lanterns dimmed. People rushed. Forgot. Returned. Forgot again. But somewhere quiet, on the edge of the ordinary, a child sat beside a window at dusk, holding a notebook full of drawings no one understood. Clouds. Trees with silver veins. A lake that sang. A girl with wings made of woven memory. She didn't know their names, but she knew they were true. Her grandmother watched her from the kitchen, smiling softly. "Still drawing that cloud place?" she asked. The girl nodded. "It's not made up. I think I've been there." The grandmother just hummed, and walked away with a knowing in her eyes she hadn't touched in years. She dreamed that once she was laughter dancing on lips, And then again, she was silence falling like snow. In her dreams, the mountains sang and the rivers ran backwards. Time had no meaning, only feeling. So she dreamed and woke and dreamed again, trying to hold on to each fleeting glimpse of something more, something ageless, something whole, until the very fabric of her dreams began to fray, leaving behind only wisps of memory and moments of forgetting. That night, the girl dreamed, but not like other nights. She didn't float. Later that week, in the space between sleep and wakefulness, a cloud gathered above her home. Not large, not stormy, just watching. It waited. For a while, this was enough. The drawings hung on walls, without frames. The words danced on pages left unbound. But the girl who drew the clouds noticed. She saw the way people hurried through life, bumping into one another like ships in the night, seeking connection. She didn't know the words, only that their meaning echoed within her bones, deep as the roots of the dreaming tree. And so the girl set out into the world, carrying her drawings and her dreams in a satchel slung across her shoulder, the lantern resting warmly on her hip. The cloak fell around her shoulders like a second skin, lighter than air, yet warmer than wool. As she walked, the trees parted, revealing a sight that stole her breath away. Remember me? Remember us. Remember the way. As the tree spoke, the hill of grass beneath her feet began to glow with a soft, inner light. And in that moment, the girl knew what her purpose was. With newfound determination, she reached for her satchel, pulling out her notebooks and paints. She painted the whisperings onto pages, imbuing them with the essence of the trees, tailies, infusing them with the hopes held in the hands of the carved birds. Then she turned to the boy, asking, "What must I do?" And so she did. With each step, with each sunrise, with each whispered word, she carried the legacy of the whispering wood. Once upon a time, long ago, deep in a sleeping world, something happened. It wasn't remembered now. It wasn't meant to be, but maybe it could have been if Sora hadn't stumbled upon it first. She ran down a hill, hair flying, laughter echoing. Behind her, the tree line gave way to open fields. Ahead, the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting clouds in colors she'd never seen before. It was a sight she would tell everyone about, except for Mira. She didn't want to leave. So Sora sat down on a nearby stone. Dreams risen from the earth. They floated above the ground, not asleep, but resting, waiting for the right time to be born again. She reached out, wanting to touch it, to hold it, but it slipped through her fingers like water. Still, she realized she wasn't just the keeper of memory. She was also the guardian of stories. With newfound purpose, she stepped forward, ready to embrace her role. She could hear its whispers as it uttered those words. The earth pulsed, and before Sora stood a blossom she had never seen before. Translucent, petal by petal, it opened, reaching towards the light. Then it released a dream into the world again. The dreams were in good hands, or rather roots, she thought with a smile, glancing down at the intertwined branches and roots of the ancient trees surrounding the clearing. Sora turned to go. As she walked away, Mira began hesitantly, each lost in thought, when suddenly a laugh broke the quiet. Sora turned to Mira. "My dear friends, but if you would, you may continue it in your own hearts and minds. What new stories will Sora and Mira find on their adventures? Which forgotten dreams will they help to awaken? What wonders and challenges will they encounter along the way? It is up to you to decide." A wide grin on her face. "Come," she said, extending her hand. "There's a story waiting for us to find. Do you think the dreams take the shape of the stories they carry?" Sora's eyes twinkled with understanding. "Perhaps," she said softly, guided by the whispers of the wind, the echoes of the past, and the hope for a brighter future. Perhaps the dreams take the shape of the stories they carry. She heard the soft murmur of dreams being carried on the wind. Each one carried a fragment of a soul, a piece of someone's story, and she knew that somewhere out there they walked away from the whispering tree, leaving the dreams to rest in the safety of the valley. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Casting long shadows across the land, Sora and Mira ventured forth. They didn't know what stories they would uncover, what dreams they would rediscover. But they were ready. Together they would seek out the fragments of forgotten tales, ensuring that the cycle of remembrance continued. For they understood that every dream, every story had a purpose, a reason to be carried, a meaning to be embraced. People's lives were being touched by these dreams. Whether they remembered it or not, they, too, had witnessed countless dreams over the years and had a silent understanding of their importance. Sora found Mira waiting. Mira had a small stone in her hand, one that looked oddly familiar. "I found this near the lake," Mira said, offering it to Sora. It was smooth and cool to the touch, like a polished tear. And as Sora examined it, she saw that it was shaped like a bird taking flight. Each carried a dream within, waiting to be set free. One by one, the flowers unfurled, releasing dreams into the world. Sora watched as each dream took flight, carrying with it the potential for connection, understanding, and healing. She witnessed dreams that mended broken relationships, sparked acts of kindness, and inspired creative expression. Feel its emotions. Sora watched, a smile gracing her lips. She knew now. The dreams went here, to the waiting place. Not a grave, not a prison, a cradle, where they are kept safe until someone is ready to carry them again. Sora realized they were only temporary vessels, existing to guide the dreams back into the world. She understood now that her role was to nurture these dreams while they rested, to protect them from harm, and to ensure they were released when the time was right. Joy, sadness, longing, hope. These were the echoes of lives lived, moments cherished, stories untold. Each glowed faintly, brighter than any star Sora had ever seen. She recognized some, a song once hummed by a girl who died too young, a painting never finished but held in a grandmother's gaze, a question a boy asked once, quietly, and was told to forget. Slowly, the ground cracked open, and a voice rose from beneath the earth, deeper than memory. Where do the dreams go after they are dreamed? Do they vanish like mist at sunrise? Do they scatter like birds startled by noise? Or do they wait? And the voice continued, weaving tales of forgotten lore, stories of souls who came before. Sora stood mesmerized, listening to the wisdom hidden within the stones. The voice carried tales of bravery and sacrifice, love and loss, laughter and tears. Each story wove together the tapestry of existence, reminding Sora of the interconnectedness of all living things. They drifted there, light as dust, each holding a story. In the silence that followed, she heard Mira ask, "Will we stay here forever?" Sora stared at the sunset. "I hope so," she said quietly. The dreams surged upward, breaking free of its slumber. Sora gasped, stumbling back as it rose higher and higher, becoming brighter. She watched as it flew away, soaring through the trees, breaking through the clouds, returning to the world of wakefulness. And with it, Sora realized, returned a part of her. It was only then that Sora noticed the ground beneath their feet. It looked familiar, but she couldn't quite place it. She understood. This place was not a graveyard. It was a nursery. These were not broken dreams. They were simply resting, waiting for someone to remember them, to carry them again. A tear traced its way down Sora's cheek, mingling with the morning dew. As if it were the corner of a half-remembered dream, she reached out and touched a blade of grass, swaying gently in the breeze. She left the whispering tree and walked across the fields, beyond the hills. She came upon a place, not yet named, a valley of stillness, not silence. Stillness. Here tall trees stood guard over a clearing, and in the center of that clearing, a circle of standing stones, hummed with power. Sora stepped inside. She placed the stone on the ground and closed her eyes, listening. The wind sang through the trees, birds called overhead, but beneath it all, she heard it again, the heartbeat of countless dreams. And then she remembered, this was where she found the small stone carved with strange patterns. She pulled it from her pocket, turned it over in her hands. The whispers began almost before she touched it. The familiar voice echoed in her mind. Where do the dreams go after they are dreamed? Do they vanish like mist at sunrise? Do they scatter like birds startled by noise? Or do they wait? Now she knew why she'd felt drawn to this place. The corner of a forgotten dream. It was a question that no one had ever asked that question. Not fully. Sora, now grown and quietly radiant, stood beside the tree of becoming. She listened. Not to the wind. Not to the lake. But to the quiet between them. And there she heard a heartbeat. Not hers. Not Mira's. Something older, vaster. The pulse of dreams. After she knew what she had to do. And when Mira asked, "Where are you going?" Sora simply replied, "To find an answer." Then she saw them, and as Sora watched, one of the dreams drifted closer. Suddenly, in that moment, then the earth rumbled. From beneath the roots of the ancient stones, something stirred. As the voice faded, Sora felt a profound shift within her. And then the voice spoke again. Nothing dreamed in truth is ever lost. The dream fluttered skyward, unnoticed by most. But somewhere a young man stood up from his office desk, walked outside and finally called his mother. With a heart full of gratitude, Sora turned to leave. But as she did, more blossoms sprouted around her. And then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the blossoms began to fade. As the last blossom withered, Sora felt a sense of peace settle over her. With her task complete, back at the Whispering Tree, do you think they stood in silence for a moment, hand in hand? And so their journey continued, and that is where the story ends. Thank you for joining me on this tale today. May your own dreams be filled with wonder, and your days with purpose. Until next time, farewell.